Here's a real case in a company in Australia, a mine site. This is a return roller on a conveyor belt. Obviously that return roller has failed, it's broken in half, and it's been that way a long, long time. Because just here, you can see that the metal on the edge has been worn away. On that roller there, the roller is actually worn, it's shaped like that. That has seized in place, and the belt rubs across the roller. And as the belt rubs, it wears away the material. The trouble is here, once that material wears away and the actual wall thickness is worn through, we get a knife edge. When that wall thickness is worn through, we get a knife edge, literally a sharp knife edge. So now we've got this knife edge and the belt's running across the knife edge. At that point in time, a couple of things can happen. The knife edge can catch the belt and it tears the belt all the way down. We'll actually cut the belt in half all the way down. And this can be a couple of kilometres long of belt, huge length of belt, and now the belt's torn all the way for 2 kilometres. Or it can be even worse and be unlucky and the knife edge shaves away the rubber. The rubber shavings get carried by the conveyor to the electric motor and drive unit and gearbox at the end of the conveyor. And these shavings build up around the electric motor, around the gearbox, get so hot they catch alight and burn the whole conveyor system down. Those are things that can happen once we get a knife edge on these rollers. So I can model the various scenarios of risk depending upon what happens in the company. Now, it doesn't mean there will be a burnt conveyor every time there's a knife edge. It doesn't mean there'll be a torn belt every time there's a knife edge. But with a knife edge there all the time, opportunity is there all the time. And now I'm counting on chance not happening. So if the conveyor's working, if the conveyor roller is working properly, it's rotating as it should, then the risk is where it should be. It's designed to rotate and to carry the load and to do its job, and the risk is acceptable in the blue zone. Once the conveyor seizes and the roller no longer turns, it is not doing its job. It is just sitting there frozen. We begin wearing away that roller until the knife edge gradually appears. Well, at the point it's seized, the risk obviously begins to increase. While it's rotating and doing its job, there's very little risk of having a disaster with a conveyor. Once the seizing of the roller occurs, I've now raised the risk to the point where where there is a clear evidence that I'm now carrying more chance of fate than I was before. If I do nothing to replace that roller, as has been done here, they've done nothing to replace it, and to get to this level here of damage would be a couple of months of rubbing. So this has been failed for a couple of months at least. Now once I get to the point I get a knife edge, I'm now in a situation where, gee, I can get a tear. And that tear is going to cost me $200,000 to replace that whole belt when it tears. Now the fact that and also on top of that, it can go one other pathway into the shaved conveyor that goes and catches the light and burns the whole thing down. Now if the whole system burns down, I lose $2 million. So I can paint for our production people what the situation is. Once I get a seized roller, I can say, Mr. Production Manager, I've got to get to that roller in the next couple of weeks. I can't wait a couple of months, because if I wait a couple of months, here are the 2 things that could happen. May not. I'm not saying it will, but they could, because the opportunity now is there for them to happen. Once that knife edge starts, these 2 pathways open up. Until the knife edge is not there, then it's just a seized bearing, easy to manage. That's why we have this risk matrix in plant wellness.
Now, how is the knife edge caused? What causes the knife edge?
Let me just get an example.